Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're shining a spotlight on a hidden, honestly, often totally misunderstood reality that plays out in bedrooms, hallways, and classrooms every single morning. We're talking about school anxiety. And we aren't just going to talk about it, we're actually going to look at exactly what it feels like from the inside out. Because, for so many bright, capable students, what looks like a simple refusal to go to school is actually a deeply distressing, completely invisible biological event. So let's set the stage and pull back the curtain on this invisible alarm system.
Now, when a student is struggling just to get out the door or participate in class, the outside world often slaps a label on them, right? Dramatic, lazy, overly sensitive, or just uncooperative. We see it as bad behavior, but actually, scratch that. The inside reality is a completely different story. Internally, that very same student is dealing with racing thoughts, an accelerated heartbeat, shortness of breath, and pretty much a total emotional shutdown. They aren't misbehaving at all. They're experiencing a full-blown survival response. We absolutely have to stop viewing this through the lens of discipline and start looking at it through the lens of biology.
So let's look at the first part of our story. The invisible alarm, Act 1, nobody sees it.
Let me introduce you to our protagonist, Sarah. She's a 14-year-old, really bright student. It's early morning. The house is quiet, the colors are a bit muted. From the doorway, everything looks completely normal. Just a teenager getting ready for the day, right? But if we zoom in on the hidden physical distress happening in that quiet room, we see her hands are trembling. Her palms are sweating. Her breathing has become really shallow and restricted. She is literally frozen in place. And right at that exact moment, her mom calls from downstairs, breaking the silence. "Sarah, hurry up or you'll be late!" Now to her loving but kind of confused mom, Sarah is just dragging her feet. But in reality, Sarah is trapped in a body that is screaming at her that she is in immediate danger.
And this is her response. Just a quiet, paralyzed whisper. I can't. Notice it's not I won't. It's I can't. What looks to the outside world like a stubborn, uncooperative avoidance is actually her just freezing up. Her body's emergency brakes have been completely pulled. She's overwhelmed by the biological distress of what lies ahead of her.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Act 2. Inside Anxious Minds, Walking to School.
Okay, so when Sarah actually forces herself out the door, the simple, everyday act of walking to the school building becomes this heavy, claustrophobic journey. Through the lens of severe anxiety, an ordinary environment basically transforms into a threatening landscape. Her sensory perception is entirely distorted. Her own heartbeat is deafeningly loud in her ears. The voices of her peers are muffled, and the familiar sound of the school bell, it becomes distorted and jarring. As she walks down the hallway, other students around her just laughing and talking, but her anxious brain instantly misinterprets the data. Her brain assumes, they're laughing at me. Every single neutral action by someone else is perceived as a direct, hostile judgment.
And then, the ultimate trigger. She's sitting in the classroom, the walls already feeling like they're closing in on her, her vision narrowing into a tunnel. And her well-meaning teacher suddenly calls out, "Sarah, can you answer number 4? Instantly, her internal monologue just explodes. What if I'm wrong? Everyone is judging me. What if I embarrass myself? I need to escape. The dread escalates in a split second. Her breathing becomes rapid, the faces of her classmates blur, and a full-blown panic attack begins right there at her desk.
Which brings us to the biology of panic, the invisible neurostorm.
Okay, let's dive into this, because we need to strip away the emotion for a second and look at the hard science. Behind Sarah's blurred vision is a rapid biological cascade. It's like a line of dominoes falling. First, the amygdala, that's the brain's threat detection center, gets activated. It falsely flags the classroom as a life-threatening environment. Step 2, cortisol, the stress hormone, starts rapidly rising in her bloodstream. Step 3, the sympathetic nervous system engages, which essentially shifts power away from logical thinking and shoves it all toward immediate survival. And finally, Step 4, the classic fight-or-flight response completely takes over. This is neuroscience, plain and simple. In fact, educational psychologists estimate that a massive percentage of chronic absenteeism is misdiagnosed as behavioral defiance, when, really, it's an anxiety-driven neurostorm exactly like this one. You simply cannot punish or pressure a student out of a biological fight-or-flight response.
Let's all take a collective deep breath here. Act 3. Understanding changes everything. The counselor's office. So we're shifting gears now into the recovery phase, where the adults finally begin to see this invisible reality. The lighting shifts from that dark, anxious tension to a warm, calm office setting.
The empathetic school counselor sits down with Sarah's parents and her teacher and explains it beautifully. She says her nervous system believes school is dangerous. Anxiety is a protective alarm system that is firing way too often. So the crucial point is, once the adults understand this biological definition, everything changes. All that frustration melts away into profound empathy.
With this new scientific and highly empathetic understanding, the family and the teacher drastically change their approach. Instead of applying pressure and demands, they provide gentle reassurance. They establish predictable routines so Sarah's brain doesn't have to constantly be on edge guessing what's coming next. They prioritize emotional safety over sheer academic compliance. And they use gradual exposure, helping Sarah face her fears in small, manageable, supported steps, rather than just throwing her into the deep end of the neurostorm.
And here is the beautiful, hopeful resolution of our explainer today. Sarah re-enters the school. She's walking down a hallway filled with soft, warm sunlight. Now, is she completely cured? No, of course she's still nervous. But the absolute game changer here is that she is no longer alone in her experience. Her teacher greets her with a warm, understanding smile. Sarah's breathing is calmer. The environment is no longer this hostile threat, all because the adults around her finally understand what she's been navigating.
It really requires a fundamental mindset shift for educators, parents, and honestly all of us. When we stop looking at struggling students and asking, "What's wrong with you?" and instead look at the biology and the emotion and ask, "What is happening inside you?" well, imagine how much healing can truly begin. School anxiety is incredibly real, but with the right understanding, we can turn that invisible alarm off. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this topic. Keep asking the right questions and keep learning.